You can't be serious. This elevator's for penthouse guests only. Sir, there's been a mistake. Please let me explain. Explain, you're a janitor. Get back to your place. Sir, I am staff. You can't speak to me like that.
If you step onto that VIP floor again, I'll make sure you never work in this city, Brent Calloway snapped. This resort was built for people with money, not janitors who forgot their place. He yanked the brass key from Isaiah Cole's weathered hand and tossed it onto the marble floor like garbage. A few guests near the private elevator laughed behind their champagne glasses. Someone whispered, "Why do they let people like him up here?" The security guard moved in, pressing one hand against Isaiah's shoulder, guiding him away as if he were a stain on the carpet. The morning sun spilled through the crystal walls of the Grand Meridian Resort, turning the polished marble floor into a sheet of pale gold. Every footstep echoed softly beneath the massive chandelier that hung above the lobby like a frozen waterfall. Bellmen in navy jackets moved quickly between leather suitcases and waiting town cars. Front desk clerks smiled with practiced warmth. Wealthy guests drifted through the lobby in tailored suits, silk scarves, and sunglasses that cost more than most people's rent. Isaiah Cole pushed his cleaning cart slowly along the edge of the velvet rope that separated the main lobby from the private elevator bank. His gray janitor uniform was clean but faded, the collar softened from years of washing, the name patch on his chest slightly frayed around the letters. A mop bucket rattled quietly near his knee. Bottles of glass cleaner clicked against each other with each careful step. He kept one weathered hand on the cart handle and the other close to the pocket of his uniform shirt. He did not hurry. Around him, the resort moved with expensive precision. A pianist played near the fountain. A concierge laughed softly with a woman wearing diamonds at 10 in the morning. A young couple posed for photos beneath the gold letters carved above the reception desk. Grand Meridian Resort and Spa, since 1984. Isaiah's eyes lingered on those words longer than anyone noticed. He had seen that wall before the gold letters were added, before the fountain, before the private elevator, before the lobby smelled of imported flowers and polished wealth. Back then, the entrance had been smaller, the floors unfinished, and the sea breeze had blown dust through open doorways. Men had carried lumber through this very space with sweat running down their backs. Women had painted trim by hand under work lights that buzzed until midnight. Now, nobody looked at him unless he was in the way. A woman in a cream blazer pulled her handbag closer as he passed. A man near the coffee bar stepped aside with visible irritation, as though the wheels of Isaiah's cart might somehow stain his shoes. Two teenagers in designer hoodies glanced at his uniform, then looked away with the bored cruelty of people raised to believe service workers were part of the furniture. Isaiah noticed all of it. He noticed the scuff mark near the brass base of the north column. He noticed the slight sag in the velvet rope by the elevator, where the hook had never been properly tightened. He noticed the faint water line along the lower edge of the fountain stone, evidence that the pump was running too hard again. His eyes moved across the lobby not like a man assigned to clean it, but like someone measuring the health of something he had once known intimately. The staff barely spoke to him. A housekeeper nodded quickly, then lowered her gaze when the front desk supervisor looked over. A bellman whispered something to another bellman, and both men straightened when they saw who was approaching from the far side of the lobby. Brent Calloway's shoes announced him before his voice did. Sharp black leather struck the marble with crisp, confident taps. The resort manager moved through the lobby in a tailored charcoal suit, one hand adjusting the cuff of his white shirt, his expression calm enough for guests but cold enough for staff. Employees shifted as he passed. Smiles tightened. Shoulders squared. Conversations died quickly and politely. Brent's eyes settled on Isaiah. They narrowed. Isaiah had reached the border of the VIP area, where the marble changed from white to black, and the elevator doors gleamed like mirrors. A small gold sign beside them read "Private Access. Penthouse Guests Only." Isaiah stopped there, his cart positioned neatly beside a potted palm, and looked up at the elevator panel as if remembering exactly where every wire behind it had once been placed. The old brass key rested heavy in his shirt pocket. His fingers touched it through the fabric for just a moment. Brent saw the movement. His lips curled with quiet distaste. Several guests near the elevator paused, waiting to go upstairs. One of them glanced from Brent to Isaiah with mild curiosity, the way people watch a problem they know someone else will solve. The pianist kept playing, but the notes seemed thinner now, swallowed by the sudden stillness forming around the VIP rope. Isaiah stood perfectly still beside his cart. The chandelier light shone across the marble, across the gold sign, across the polished elevator doors, and across the face of a man everyone in that lobby believed was only there to clean up after them. Brent Calloway stopped 3 feet from Isaiah's cart, close enough that the scent of his expensive cologne cut through the clean smell of lemon polish. He looked at Isaiah's face, then at the faded uniform, then at the frayed name patch, as if each detail confirmed something he had already decided. "Isaiah," he said, his voice smooth enough for the guests to hear. "Why are you standing at the private elevators?" Isaiah turned toward him slowly. There was a spill reported near the penthouse corridor. Brent's smile tightened. "The penthouse corridor is not your concern." Mia Alvarez froze behind the reception desk, her fingers hovering above her keyboard. 2 bellmen pretended to arrange luggage tags that were already straight. The guests near the velvet rope watched with detached interest. Isaiah kept both hands on the handle of his cart. Maintenance sent the request. "Maintenance does not decide who enters VIP space," Brent replied. "I do." The words were soft, but they landed hard. One guest glanced down at Isaiah's worn shoes. Another shifted away from the cleaning cart as if proximity itself was an inconvenience. Brent noticed. His shoulders squared, his chin lifted. The lobby had become a stage, and Brent Calloway knew how to perform authority. He turned toward Mia without taking his eyes off Isaiah. "Make a note. Janitorial staff are not to approach private guest areas unless directly escorted by a department head." Mia swallowed. "Yes, Mr. Calloway." "And remind housekeeping that visibility standards apply at all times, especially today." Especially today carried its own meaning. A billionaire investor was expected before noon. A celebrity couple had reserved the royal suite. 2 luxury travel writers were moving through the resort with cameras and notebooks. Brent had spent the morning inspecting flower arrangements, straightening brass signs, and correcting employees who had already been standing straight. To him, the Grand Meridian was not a workplace. It was a mirror. Every polished surface had to reflect the version of himself he wanted powerful people to see. Isaiah did not fit that reflection. Brent stepped closer, lowering his voice. "There are guests upstairs paying $12,000 a night because they expect a certain atmosphere." Isaiah said nothing. That atmosphere does not include a janitor wandering around with a mop cart like he owns the building. The nearest bellman looked down immediately. Mia's face tightened, but she kept still. Isaiah's eyes moved briefly to the carved letters above the reception desk. Grand Meridian Resort and Spa, since 1984. Then his gaze returned to Brent. "I was asked to clean a spill," he said. Brent gave a small laugh. "You were asked to stay where your work belongs." The private elevator chimed. Its mirrored doors opened, revealing a couple in designer resort wear stepping out from the VIP level. Brent's expression transformed instantly. The coldness vanished. "Mr. and Mrs. Ellison," he said warmly. "I hope the penthouse breakfast was to your liking." "Lovely," the woman replied, though her eyes drifted toward Isaiah and the cart. Brent moved half a step in front of Isaiah, subtly blocking him from view. "Wonderful. We are taking extra care to ensure the premium spaces remain undisturbed." The word "undisturbed" hung in the air. When the couple moved on, Brent's smile disappeared as cleanly as a light being switched off. He looked at Marcus, the security guard near the marble column. "Mr. Reed," Brent said, "stand by the VIP elevators until further notice. We need to protect guest experience." Marcus shifted uneasily. "Yes, sir." Brent leaned closer to Isaiah, his voice dropping below the fountain. "Let me be very clear. The VIP floor is for people who belong there, not people who make our guests wonder what kind of resort we are running." Isaiah's fingers tightened once around the cart handle, then relaxed. He did not answer. The private elevator doors began to close behind the Ellisons, but Isaiah reached into his pocket and drew out a thin access card, faded from years of use. The plastic was cream-colored, not white like the newer staff cards, and the gold strip across the back had dulled with age. He held it between two fingers, not proudly, not defiantly, but with the quiet certainty of a man using something that had always belonged to him. Brent's eyes dropped to it. For a moment, his expression shifted. Not fear exactly. Recognition without understanding. The kind of look a man gives an old photograph found in the wrong drawer. Then his face hardened. "Where did you get that?" Brent asked. Isaiah looked at the card, then back at him. "It was issued to me." A faint laugh escaped from a man standing near the velvet rope. He wore a navy blazer, Italian loafers, and a watch that flashed every time he moved his hand. "To him?" he said, loud enough for the others to hear. "For the penthouse." The woman beside him covered her smile with two fingers, but her eyes were laughing. Mia's face dropped behind the reception desk. She glanced toward the floor, pretending to check a reservation screen that had already gone still. A young bellman stopped beside a luggage cart, his white gloves resting on a brass handle. He saw Brent's hand move toward Isaiah's card and looked away before it happened. Brent stepped closer. "Give me that." Isaiah did not pull back. "There is a service request upstairs." "I said give it to me." The lobby seemed to tighten around them. The fountain kept running. The piano kept playing. But the space between the private elevator and Isaiah's cleaning cart had gone silent enough that the soft hum of the elevator panel sounded unusually loud. Isaiah held the card out. Brent snatched it from his fingers. The movement was sharp and unnecessary, the kind of gesture meant to show everyone who controlled the room. Isaiah's hand remained raised for half a second after the card was gone, empty in the chandelier light. Then he lowered it slowly back to the cart handle. Brent turned the card over, studying it with a frown. "This isn't active." "It opened that elevator last winter," Isaiah said. Brent's smile came back, thin and cruel. "Last winter, someone in maintenance clearly made a mistake." He flicked the edge of the card with his thumb as if it were something dirty. "VIP access is not for cleaning staff. If there's a spill upstairs, someone appropriate will handle it." Isaiah's eyes moved past him to the mirrored elevator doors. In their reflection, he could see himself standing small beneath the chandelier, gray uniform, worn shoes, mop bucket beside him. He could also see the guests watching from behind Brent's shoulder. The man in the navy blazer smirked. "There's a freight elevator for a reason." Brent glanced at him, pleased by the support. "Exactly." He pointed across the lobby toward a narrow hallway near the kitchens. "You use the service elevator. You enter through the back corridors. You stay out of guest sight unless someone with authority tells you otherwise." Isaiah said nothing. He pulled the cleaning cart back, but one of its front wheels caught on the thick edge of the black carpet leading to the private elevator bank. The bucket jerked. A bottle of cleaner tipped sideways and clacked against the metal rail. The sound carried across the lobby like a small public embarrassment. A few guests laughed softly. Not loud, not enough to seem cruel if challenged, just enough for Isaiah to hear. Marcus Reed, the security guard near the marble column, took one reluctant step forward. His hand hovered near his belt, though there was no threat in front of him, only an older man with a cleaning cart and a stolen moment of dignity. "Mr. Cole," Marcus said quietly, his voice heavy with discomfort. "Maybe we should head toward the service hall." Isaiah looked at him, and Marcus's eyes flickered away. Brent held up the old access card between two fingers. "I'll be keeping this." "That card is not yours," Isaiah said softly. Brent leaned in, his polished shoes nearly touching the edge of Isaiah's cart. "Nothing on that floor is yours." The words settled over the marble like dust. Then Brent stepped aside and gestured toward the service corridor, making the motion broad enough for the waiting guests to see. Isaiah freed the stuck wheel with a slow push. The cart rolled forward at last, rattling softly as he guided it away from the private elevator. Behind him, Brent slipped the old card into his suit pocket. Isaiah guided the cart toward the service corridor, the front wheel clicking softly each time it crossed a seam in the marble. Behind him, the private elevator doors opened again, spilling warm gold light across the black carpet where he had just been stopped. No one called him back. No one apologized. The lobby simply resumed around him, as if humiliation were just another housekeeping issue to be cleared away before noon. Mia watched from behind the reception desk, her hands still resting on the keyboard. The reservation screen glowed in front of her, but her eyes stayed on Isaiah's back. He moved slowly, not with defeat, but with a patience that made the scene feel unfinished. The old access card was gone. Brent had taken it with the casual cruelty of a man confiscating something he believed had no value. But as Isaiah passed the marble column near the service hall, his fingers slipped into the small, inside pocket of his uniform shirt. They closed around something else. A brass key. It was old, heavier than it looked, its edges dulled by time and touch. The bow of the key carried a tiny engraved crest, almost worn flat now, 2 palm trees, a rising sun, the original mark of the resort before the current logo replaced it with cleaner lines and colder gold. Isaiah held it low beside the cart handle, just long enough for the chandelier light to catch on its surface. Brent saw the glint. His eyes narrowed again. "Wait," he said. The word cut through the lobby more sharply than it needed to. A few guests turned. Marcus Reed stopped near the velvet rope, his posture stiffening. Isaiah paused at the entrance to the service corridor, one hand still on his cart, the other closing around the brass key. Brent crossed the marble with quick, polished steps. "What is that in your hand?" Isaiah did not turn immediately. When he did, his face was calm. "A key." "I can see that." Brent held out his hand. "Where did you get it?" Isaiah looked down at the key, then back at him. "I've had it a long time." The man in the navy blazer chuckled from near the private elevators. "Maybe he collects scrap metal." A woman nearby gave a small laugh into her coffee cup. The sound was soft, but it reached every person close enough to understand what it meant. Brent smiled, encouraged by the room. "Is that what this is? Some antique you found in a basement? Or did you pull it out of one of the trash bins behind the kitchen?" Mia lowered her eyes. The young bellman beside the luggage cart stared at his own white gloves, his face red with secondhand shame. Isaiah opened his palm. The brass key lay against his dark, weathered skin, old but unmistakably cared for. It was not attached to a plastic tag. It was not part of any modern hotel keyring. No department name, no inventory number, just that faded crest and a long, unusual stem cut with deep teeth. Brent leaned closer, but he did not touch it. For the first time that morning, something in his expression was not contempt. It was irritation mixed with uncertainty, the look of a man seeing an object that refused to fit inside the story he had built. "We don't use keys like that here," Brent said. "No," Isaiah replied. "Not anymore." The answer made the silence around them deepen. Brent's jaw tightened. "Then it doesn't open anything." Isaiah's thumb moved slowly over the engraved crest. "It opens something you've never seen." A faint shift passed through the staff nearby. Marcus looked at the key more carefully. Mia's eyes lifted from the desk. Even the man in the navy blazer stopped smiling for a second, confused by the quiet authority in Isaiah's voice. Brent recovered quickly. He laughed once, short and sharp. "That is exactly the kind of nonsense I'm talking about." He turned slightly so the guests could hear him. "This is a luxury resort, Mr. Cole, not a museum for whatever broken pieces of the past you keep in your pockets." Isaiah closed his fist around the key. The old brass disappeared from sight, but its weight remained. It seemed to pull the air tighter around the service corridor, around Brent's polished shoes, around the marble column Isaiah had stopped beside as if it had been waiting for him. Brent pointed toward the back hallway. "Put it away. Finish your work where guests don't have to look at you." Isaiah slipped the key back into his pocket with deliberate care. Then he pushed the cart forward into the service corridor, leaving Brent standing beneath the chandelier, still watching the place where that key had been. By noon, the penthouse lounge had been transformed into a room built to impress people who were already difficult to impress. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the city and the bright strip of ocean beyond it. White orchids stood in tall glass vases. Silver trays carried smoked salmon, sliced figs, imported cheeses, and small pastries dusted with powdered sugar that no one seemed to eat. Champagne glasses caught the sunlight in neat rows along the bar. The guests moved through the room with the relaxed confidence of people used to being welcomed everywhere. Investors in tailored suits spoke quietly near the windows. A luxury travel editor examined the view while taking notes on her phone. A retired movie star sat beneath a framed painting, laughing softly as two younger guests leaned in to hear every word. A real estate developer named Victor Langley stood near the center of the lounge, his navy jacket unbuttoned, his smile polished and empty. Brent Calloway moved among them, like a man auditioning for a future he believed he deserved. "Grand Meridian is entering a very exciting chapter," he told Victor, his voice warm and measured. "Ownership is exploring strategic options, but our service standards will remain untouched. Elevated, actually." Victor nodded without much interest. "A property like this lives or dies by perception." "Exactly," Brent said quickly. "Perception is everything." His eyes swept the room as he said it, checking every server, every flower arrangement, every reflection in the polished bar. He noticed a waiter standing too close to the dessert table and gave him a small warning look. The waiter moved immediately. Brent's smile returned before any guest could see it had left. Then a champagne flute slipped from a woman's hand near the marble fireplace. The glass struck the floor and shattered with a bright, delicate sound. Pale champagne spread across the stone beneath the edge of an ivory sofa. A few guests stepped back, lifting expensive shoes away from the spill. "Oh, I'm so sorry," the woman said, though she sounded more inconvenienced than embarrassed. Brent's jaw tightened for only a second. "Not a problem at all. We'll have that handled immediately." He glanced toward the service entrance at the far end of the lounge. A junior attendant hurried out, whispered into a radio, and within moments Isaiah appeared with his cleaning cart. The room changed when he entered. Not loudly, not honestly, but enough. A conversation near the bar thinned. The travel editor looked up from her phone. Victor Langley's eyes moved from Isaiah's faded gray uniform to the mop bucket beside him. One of the younger guests gave a faint smirk and turned back toward the window, as if the sight had confirmed something beneath him. Isaiah rolled the cart carefully across the edge of the carpet, keeping the wheels away from the guests' shoes. He stopped beside the spill, lowered himself slowly, and began picking up the larger pieces of glass with gloved fingers. He worked with quiet precision. No wasted movements, no complaint. Brent stepped close enough to stand over him. "Quickly, Mr. Cole," he said under his breath. "This is not where you linger." Isaiah placed a shard of glass into the dustpan. "Broken glass takes care." Brent's mouth tightened. "Our guests should not have to watch this." Isaiah did not look up. Then someone should have kept them away from it. The words were calm, almost too quiet to matter. But Brent heard them. So did Victor. A small smile appeared on Victor's face. "Does your cleaning staff always talk back?" Brent's cheeks colored slightly. "No, sir. They understand their place." Isaiah continued wiping the champagne from the marble. The cloth moved in slow circles, drawing the liquid away from the carved edge of the fireplace. Above him, laughter resumed, softer than before, scattered through the room like falling dust. At the far wall, half hidden behind a tall floral arrangement, hung an old black and white photograph of the resort on opening night. Isaiah's hand slowed for only a moment when he saw it. Then he lowered his eyes again and kept cleaning. Victor Langley watched Isaiah finish with the broken glass, his expression sharpening with bored amusement. He was not embarrassed by the spill. If anything, the attention pleased him. He lifted a champagne flute from a passing tray and glanced toward Brent as if testing the room. "Your staff is very quiet," Victor said. Brent gave the careful smile of a man eager not to disappoint money. "We train them to be discreet. Discreet is useful." Victor's eyes moved back to Isaiah. "Invisible is better." A few guests laughed softly, not because the line was clever, but because Victor Langley was the kind of man people laughed with before they knew whether they were supposed to. Brent's smile widened just enough to show approval. Isaiah folded the damp cloth and placed it in the side bin of his cart. He rose slowly, his knees stiff from the marble floor. The champagne had been cleaned. The glass was gone. The lounge could have moved on. Victor did not let it. He stepped forward as Isaiah turned the cart toward the service entrance. With a lazy motion, he tilted his glass and poured a thin stream of champagne onto the floor. It spread across the marble in a bright crescent, deliberate and wasteful, catching the sunlight beneath his shoes. The room went still again. "There," Victor said, lowering the glass. "Since he's already here." Someone near the windows gave a nervous chuckle. The retired movie star looked away. The travel editor paused with her phone halfway lifted. A waiter stared at the spill, then at Brent, waiting for him to say something. Brent said nothing. His eyes flickered once toward Victor, then toward the investors by the bar. The calculation happened quickly behind his polished expression. Correct the guest, risk the deal, humiliate the janitor, preserve the room. He chose the room. "Mr. Cole," Brent said, his voice smooth and public. "Please take care of that." Isaiah remained still for one beat. Only one. Then he turned the cart back around. The front wheels whispered across the marble. Isaiah stopped at Victor's feet and lowered himself again, the faded gray fabric of his uniform pulling tight across his shoulders. The guests watched from above, champagne glasses held like small crystal shields. Victor looked down at him. "This is what he's paid for, isn't it?" Brent let out a breath that was almost a laugh. "Every roll here has a purpose." Isaiah pressed the cloth to the champagne and began drawing it into slow, careful lines. His hand moved with the same patience he had shown in the lobby. He did not hurry. He did not give Victor the satisfaction of seeing shame on his face. The only sound was the faint drag of cloth over stone, the hush of the air conditioning, and the clink of ice somewhere behind him. Mia appeared near the service doorway, holding guest folders she no longer seemed to remember. Her eyes were fixed on Isaiah. Marcus stood a few feet behind her, jaw tight, hands folded in front of him as if guarding himself from his own conscience. Isaiah reached the edge of the spill, then paused. His gaze had lifted, not to Victor, not to Brent, not to the guests waiting to see whether the old janitor would break. Isaiah was looking past them all, toward the far corner of the lounge where the black and white opening night photograph hung half hidden behind white orchids. In the picture, a younger version of the resort stood beneath strings of lights. Men and women smiled in front of the main entrance, proud and exhausted. At the edge of the frame stood a young black man in a dark suit beside a woman holding a ribbon. Isaiah's hand tightened around the cloth. Victor followed his gaze and smirked. "Something interesting over there?" Isaiah lowered his eyes again. "Yes." Brent frowned. "Finish cleaning." Isaiah wiped the last of the champagne from the marble. Then he stood slowly, with the damp cloth folded in one weathered hand. His voice stayed quiet when he spoke. "You should be careful what you spill in a place like this." Victor laughed. "And why is that?" Isaiah looked once more at the old photograph. "Some stains don't come out." The words did not land loudly, but they lingered longer than laughter would have. Victor's smile faded first. Brent's eyes sharpened, annoyed not by the sentence itself, but by the way Isaiah had spoken it. Calmly, as if he knew something the rest of them did not. Isaiah placed the damp cloth into the lower tray of his cart, but he did not leave right away. His gaze returned to the black and white photograph near the far corner of the lounge. The frame was expensive, polished silver, recently installed to match the room. But the picture inside it was older than everything around it, older than the glass bar, older than the velvet chairs, older than the name Brent kept saying with so much pride. The Grand Meridian's opening night. Strings of lights hung across the old entrance. Workers stood shoulder to shoulder with early guests, all of them smiling into a camera that had captured more truth than the people upstairs cared to remember. The building looked smaller then, warmer, its wooden doors thrown open behind a ribbon stretched across the front steps. Isaiah stared at the left side of the photograph. A young black man stood there in a dark suit, half hidden behind another guest's shoulder. Beside him stood a woman with bright eyes and one hand resting on the ribbon scissors. Her face was partly blurred by age and glare, but Isaiah did not need a clear image to know her. His hand tightened on the cart handle. Mia had followed the direction of his eyes. She stepped closer, still holding the guest folders against her chest. "Mr. Cole?" she said quietly. Brent turned sharply. "Mia, return to reception." She hesitated. "Yes, sir." But her eyes remained on Isaiah. Isaiah looked at the small brass label beneath the photograph. The letters were faded, some polished away from years of cleaning. It read, "Opening Night, Grand Meridian Resort, 1984. Founding Guests and Executive Partners." He studied the label for a long moment. "That's not right," he said. Brent's face tightened. "Excuse me?" Isaiah nodded toward the photograph. "It's in the wrong place." Victor laughed under his breath. The janitor has opinions on interior design now. A few guests smiled, but the humor came weaker this time. Isaiah did not look at him. "It used to hang by the east stairwell, where the morning light hit it." Brent folded his arms. "And you would know that how?" The question should have sounded like a trap. Instead, it made the room quieter. Isaiah's eyes moved from the photograph to the brass label beneath it. "Because someone moved it, and someone changed the plate." Mia's brows drew together. "Changed it?" Isaiah took one slow step closer to the wall. Brent moved as if to stop him, then seemed to remember the guests watching. Isaiah stopped just short of the photograph, close enough for the old image to reflect faintly in his eyes. "There's a name missing," he said. Mia glanced at the label again. "Whose name?" Isaiah did not answer at first. He looked at the woman in the photograph, the one holding the scissors beside the young man in the dark suit. For the first time all morning, the quiet on his face looked less like patience and more like grief, carefully locked away. Then he said softly, "The first one." Brent's expression changed at the word first. It was small, almost invisible to the guests, but Mia saw it. The muscles around his mouth tightened. His eyes moved from Isaiah to the photograph, then to the brass label beneath it, as if the old frame had suddenly become a problem rather than decoration. "That is enough," Brent said. Isaiah did not turn away from the picture. "History should be accurate." Victor Langley gave a dry laugh. "History also belongs in the past." Brent seized the opening. "Exactly." He stepped in front of Isaiah, blocking his view of the photograph. "And staff members who interrupt private events do not get to lecture guests about wall art." Isaiah's face remained calm. "I wasn't lecturing." "No," Brent said softly. "You were overstepping." The word carried through the lounge like a warning. Mia lowered her folders. Marcus shifted near the service entrance, his jaw tight. A server holding a tray of untouched pastries stared at the carpet. Brent turned toward the room with a polished smile. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the interruption. Please continue enjoying the reception." The guests obeyed slowly. Conversations resumed in pieces. Glasses lifted again. Victor turned back to the investors by the windows, but his eyes kept sliding toward Isaiah, amused by the damage he had helped create. Brent moved closer to Isaiah. His voice dropped low enough to sound private, but not kind. "Take your cart downstairs. Now." Isaiah looked at him for a long moment. "The spill is clean, and so is your reason for being here." Isaiah pushed the cart toward the service door. The wheels rattled softly over the marble, passing beneath the old photograph without touching the wall. Mia watched him disappear into the back hallway, then glanced toward Brent. She should not have. "Mia," Brent said. Her shoulders stiffened. "Yes, Mr. Calloway?" "My office. In 5 minutes." The glass walls of Brent's office overlooked the lobby from the mezzanine level, giving him a perfect view of every employee below. It was a room designed for control: black desk, chrome lamp, framed hospitality awards, a wall screen showing occupancy reports, guest satisfaction scores, and the afternoon schedule in neat columns of blue and white. Brent closed the door harder than necessary. Mia stood near the chair in front of his desk, but he did not invite her to sit. He opened his laptop and typed with sharp, practiced movements. His reflection floated faintly in the glass wall behind him. Clean suit, perfect hair, cold eyes. "Isaiah Cole," he said, as if the name itself irritated him. Mia kept her voice careful. "He has worked here for years." "That is not the question." Brent clicked into the employee management system. "The question is whether he can represent this property at the standard required during a high-value transition." The screen loaded Isaiah's file. A small employee photo appeared beside basic information. Custodial services. Part-time. Night and overflow shift. No disciplinary record. Brent's eyes narrowed at the last line. "No disciplinary record," he murmured. "That changes today." Mia's fingers tightened around the folders. "Mr. Calloway, he only responded after Mr. Langley spilled champagne on purpose." Brent looked up slowly. "Be very careful." The office seemed colder. He began typing an incident report. Inappropriate presence in VIP lounge. Failure to follow visibility protocol. Verbal remarks causing discomfort to premium guests. Unauthorized possession of obsolete access materials. Possible confusion regarding property history. Each phrase made the truth smaller. Each sentence turned humiliation into policy. Mia watched the words appear on the screen, her face paling slightly. "That is not what happened." Brent stopped typing. "What happened is what gets documented." He clicked another tab and opened the scheduling system. Isaiah's name appeared under evening maintenance support, and next morning public area cleaning. Brent selected both shifts and removed them. The boxes went blank. Then he added a note. "Do not schedule pending review." Mia stared at the screen. "He needs those hours." Brent gave a humorless smile. Then he should have remembered he is paid to clean, not perform in front of investors. He opened an email addressed to Human Resources. His fingers moved quickly. "Please prepare separation options for Isaiah Cole. Employee has demonstrated repeated boundary issues, poor judgment around VIP guests, and conduct inconsistent with Grand Meridian image standards. Recommend immediate suspension pending formal review." He paused, then added one more line. "Potential guest relations risk if retained." Mia's voice came out small. "You are firing him because he embarrassed you." Brent's eyes lifted. "No," he said. "I am protecting the brand." He clicked send. The message disappeared from the screen with a soft electronic sound. Tiny, clean, almost weightless. Down below, through the glass wall, Isaiah's cleaning cart moved across the far edge of the lobby toward the service hall. He looked small from that height. Smaller than the chandelier. Smaller than the marble columns. Smaller than the guests who never had to wonder whether one email could erase their next paycheck. Brent watched him for a moment, then closed the laptop. "Some people," he said, "mistake access for belonging." Mia left Brent's office with the folders still pressed against her chest, though she could not remember what was inside them. The glass door closed behind her with a soft click. Down in the lobby, the afternoon crowd had thickened. Suitcases rolled over marble. Guests checked watches. A child pointed at the fountain, while his mother pulled him gently away from the wet edge. Everything looked normal again. That was what bothered her most. Isaiah had been humiliated in front of guests, mocked by a man who spilled champagne just to watch him bend, and erased from the schedule with a few polished sentences. Yet the resort kept shining. The chandelier kept glowing. The front desk kept smiling. The system had swallowed what happened and called it procedure. Mia returned to her station, but her hands moved slower than usual. She checked in a couple from Chicago. She printed keycards for a family staying on the 8th floor. She answered a call about late checkout. Through all of it, she kept seeing Isaiah's hand closing around that brass key. 2 palm trees, a rising sun. The crest had been small, nearly worn flat, but she had seen it before. Not on the new brochures, not on the guest app, not on the gold pins Brent made department heads wear during investor visits. Somewhere older. Mia glanced toward the mezzanine. Brent's office door was shut. His silhouette moved behind the glass, phone pressed to his ear. She looked toward the service hallway. Marcus stood near the entrance, speaking quietly into his radio, his face still troubled. Then Mia opened a new browser tab on the front desk computer. Her fingers hesitated over the keys. She typed Grand Meridian Original logo. Nothing useful appeared. Modern photos, wedding packages, spa awards, real estate rumors, a travel article praising the resort's redesign after corporate acquisition. She narrowed the search inside the internal media library. Access restricted. Mia swallowed and tried again, this time using the old property archive folder used by marketing interns whenever guests asked for historic images. The screen loaded slowly. A row of scanned photographs appeared, most of them badly labeled. Lobby renovation, exterior west wing, opening night, founder event, unknown ceremony. Her heart began to beat harder. She clicked opening night. The same black and white photograph from the penthouse lounge filled the screen, but this version was clearer. The young black man at the edge of the frame was not half hidden. He stood beside the woman holding the ribbon scissors. Both of them were smiling, tired and proud, as if they had built something with their own hands and could hardly believe it was standing. Mia zoomed in on the sign above the entrance. Not Grand Meridian. Suncrest Meridian Resort. Beneath the words was the old crest, 2 palm trees, a rising sun, the same mark on Isaiah's key. Mia's breath caught. She scrolled down to the caption field, expecting a list of names. Instead, most of the text had been replaced by a short corporate note. Original property celebration, 1984. Executive partners and invited guests. No first names, no founders, no explanation. She clicked the file details. Archived before Langley Holdings transition. Imported from legacy server. Ownership metadata incomplete. Mia stared at the words. Langley Holdings. Victor Langley's company. Her mouse moved almost by itself to a folder labeled Pre-Acquisition Legal Images. When she clicked it, the screen flashed red. Permission denied. She tried another folder. Legacy Branding Assets. Permission denied. A third. Founder Documentation. Permission denied. The front desk phone rang, but Mia did not pick it up. Her eyes stayed fixed on the locked folder name. Founder Documentation. Behind her, a guest cleared his throat impatiently. Mia closed the window just as Brent's office door opened above the lobby. Her face returned to its trained, pleasant calm, but her hand trembled as she reached for the phone. For the first time all day, Isaiah Cole no longer looked like a man who had wandered into the wrong part of the resort. He looked like the reason someone had locked the past away. By late afternoon, the sky above the Grand Meridian had turned the color of wet slate. Rain struck the porte cochere in dark circles. Inside, the lobby still glowed with gold light. Guests gathered near the doors, waiting for valets beneath the awning. Isaiah was in the service hallway when his employee badge stopped working. The small red light flashed once on the locker room door, then stayed dark. He tried again. Nothing. The hallway smelled of bleach, damp towels, and dinner service. A line cook glanced at him, then looked away. Isaiah stood there with his cleaning cart beside him, one hand on the badge, the other resting near the pocket where the brass key sat against his chest. Behind him, expensive shoes tapped across the tile. Mr. Cole. Brent Calloway stood at the end of the corridor with Marcus Reed beside him. Brent had removed his suit jacket, but the crisp white shirt and silver watch made him look even more severe. Marcus's face was tight, his eyes lowered. Isaiah turned slowly. "My things are in my locker." "Not anymore," Brent said. Isaiah studied him. "You emptied it. Human Resources will inventory any personal items and contact you if retrieval is appropriate." Brent's voice carried the cold smoothness of an email read aloud. "As of this moment, you are suspended pending review." A dishwasher stopped pushing a rack of glasses. 2 housekeepers froze near the linen shelves. Mia stood just beyond the kitchen entrance. Isaiah's voice remained steady. "I have medication in that locker." Something flickered across Marcus's face. Brent saw it and spoke first. Then you should have considered that before creating a disturbance around premium guests. Mia stepped forward. Mr. Calloway, he did not create— Reception, Brent snapped without looking at her. Now! Mia stopped. The shame on her face was not for herself. Brent pointed toward the front of the hotel. Escort him out through the main entrance. Marcus looked up. The service exit is closer. I said the main entrance. He wanted witnesses. Isaiah understood that immediately. So did Mia. So did every employee who suddenly found something else to look at. Marcus walked beside Isaiah, not touching him, while Brent followed a few steps behind. They passed through the service door into the lobby just as thunder rolled beyond the glass. Heads turned toward the entrance, then toward the older black man in the faded janitor uniform being walked past reception without his cart. The lobby quieted in pieces. A woman with shopping bags stared. A man in a cream linen suit whispered to his wife. Two guests under the awning turned from the rain to watch. The same marble floor that had reflected chandeliers all morning now reflected Isaiah's tired shoes. At the front doors, Brent stepped beside him. This resort was built for people who understand its value, Brent said, loud enough for those nearby to hear. Not for men who think mopping floors gives them a claim to it. No one laughed this time. That made it worse. The automatic doors opened and rain swept inward with the smell of wet pavement. Marcus swallowed. Sir, he said quietly, I'm sorry. Isaiah gave him a small nod. Not forgiveness exactly. Recognition. He stepped outside. Rain struck his shoulders immediately, darkening the gray fabric of his uniform. Guests stood dry beneath the awning, watching him descend the front steps alone. Water ran along the stone, carrying flower petals toward the gutter. Halfway down, Isaiah reached into his pocket. The brass key slipped from his wet fingers. It hit the step with a sharp metallic sound, bounced once, and slid into a shallow stream near his shoe. Isaiah bent with effort and picked it up before the water could carry it farther. The old crest glimmered under the gray sky. 2 palm trees, a rising sun. Isaiah closed his fist around it and looked back at the hotel. Brent stood inside the warm lobby, framed by glass and gold, already turning away as if the matter were finished. Isaiah placed the key back against his chest. Then he walked into the rain. The bus dropped Isaiah 2 blocks from the house where he rented the back room. Rain still fell, softer now, turning the streetlights into trembling yellow circles on the pavement. He walked beneath them with his uniform damp against his shoulders and the brass key closed in his fist. The house sat behind a chain-link fence in a quiet suburb. Paint peeled from the porch rail. A wind chime tapped weakly beside the door. Inside, the hallway smelled of old wood, canned soup, and rainwater soaking into shoes. Isaiah's room was at the end. It was barely large enough for a bed, a dresser, and 1 small lamp balanced on a crate. No awards hung on the walls, no certificates, no framed proof of the life the world had once seen in him. Only 1 photograph stood on the dresser, showing a woman with soft eyes and a ribbon pinned to her dress. Her smile warmed the room more than the lamp did. Isaiah removed his wet shoes and set them near the door. He dried the brass key with the edge of a towel. Then he stood still, listening to rain against the window. At the foot of the bed sat an old wooden trunk. Its leather straps were cracked. Its corners were dark with age. Dust lay in the grooves around the latch, but the lock itself had been polished by years of careful hands. Isaiah lowered himself onto one knee and fitted the brass key inside. It turned. The click was small, but in that room it sounded like a door opening somewhere beneath the past. He lifted the lid. Inside were papers wrapped in cloth and tied with faded string. Blueprints lay on top, yellowed at the edges, the ink still clear enough to show the resort before glass towers and private lounges covered its bones. There was the first lobby, the east stairwell, the service corridor, the penthouse level, marked in pencil with notes written by a younger hand. Isaiah touched the corner of one page. Suncrest Meridian main entrance, final revision. Beneath the plans were photographs, workers standing beside lumber piles, a younger Isaiah in rolled-up sleeves, holding a hard hat under one arm. The same woman from the dresser stood beside him, smiling in front of unfinished doors. Another picture showed opening night, the old crest above the entrance, 2 palm trees and a rising sun. Isaiah did not smile. He reached deeper and removed a bundle of letters tied with blue thread. The top envelope carried his name in careful handwriting. My Isaiah. He opened it slowly. The paper had softened along the folds. Some words were faded, but one line remained clear. They can repaint the walls, but they cannot erase who poured the foundation. Isaiah closed his eyes. For a moment, the rain seemed farther away. The last papers were heavier. Contracts, founding agreements, early investor notes, blue ink signatures beside dates from decades before. Suncrest Meridian Development Partnership. Isaiah Cole appeared there more than once, not as a janitor, not as temporary labor, but as builder, planner, and original partner. He spread the papers across the bed with quiet precision. No speech, no anger, just evidence. The brass key rested beside the contracts, dull gold against old paper. Isaiah looked from the key to his wife's photograph on the dresser. Then he folded her letter and reached for the phone. The phone remained untouched for a long moment. Isaiah's hand rested beside it, but his eyes had gone back to the papers spread across the bed. Rain traced thin lines down the window. The room smelled faintly of old paper, damp wool, and cedar from the trunk. On top of the blueprints lay a photograph from the first summer of construction. The resort had not been a resort then. It was a skeleton of beams rising from sandy ground, with tarps snapping in the ocean wind and pickup trucks parked where the valet circle now gleamed. Men in dusty boots carried plywood across the site. Women in work gloves painted window frames beneath temporary lights. Isaiah stood near the unfinished entrance, younger, broad-shouldered, his sleeves rolled to the elbows, his hand resting on a wooden sign not yet mounted. Suncrest Meridian. That was the first name. Beside him stood his wife, holding a clipboard against her chest. She was smiling at something outside the frame, her hair pulled back, her shoes muddy from walking the site all morning. She had designed the first guest garden herself, not for investors, not for magazine covers, for travelers who needed to feel human again after long roads, missed flights, and bad days. Isaiah picked up the photograph with both hands. Back then, the lobby had smelled of fresh-cut wood and salt air. The first chandelier had been smaller, bought at auction with money they barely had. The front desk was built by a local carpenter who refused to charge full price because Isaiah had once helped repair his mother's roof. Every piece of the place had a story before it had a price. The first employees had eaten lunch together on overturned paint buckets. Housekeepers, cooks, clerks, builders, investors, all in the same room because there were no private lounges yet. Isaiah's wife had insisted on that. No invisible people, she had said. Not here. Isaiah had promised her. The promise lived in the papers now. He unfolded the founding agreement and smoothed the creases with his thumb. The signatures were still there. Isaiah Cole, his wife's name beside his, 2 partners beneath them. One of those partners had brought money. Another had brought legal connections. Isaiah and his wife had brought the land rights, the design, the community relationships, and the years of labor no spreadsheet could measure. For a while, it had worked. The resort opened with music in the driveway and lanterns along the walk. The first guests shook Isaiah's hand. The local newspaper called him one of the visionaries behind the coast's most hopeful new property. His wife cried quietly after everyone left, not from sadness, but from the strange exhaustion of seeing a dream become a building. Then came the expansion. A management company offered capital. Then came consultants. Then came new lawyers with clean briefcases and smiles that never reached their eyes. They spoke of growth, restructuring, protection, efficiency. They said the old partnership language was messy. They said temporary transfers would make financing easier. They said everyone would benefit once the corporate deal was complete. Isaiah's wife did not trust them. Neither did Isaiah. But the resort had debts then. Payroll was due. Longtime employees had mortgages, children, medical bills. A delay could have closed the doors. A lawsuit too early could have frozen accounts and put every worker on the street by Friday. So Isaiah signed nothing without copies. That was what saved him. He opened a second folder from the trunk. Inside were letters from attorneys who no longer practiced, memos with missing pages, and one recorded statement transcribed by a court reporter years after the company claimed all transfers had been voluntary. The words were dry. The damage behind them was not. Equity reassignment, pending administrative consolidation, temporary control for management purposes, founder interest to be resolved after debt stabilization. Phrases like that had stolen a life. By the time Isaiah realized the transfer had become permanent on paper, his wife was already sick. The company had surrounded them with threats. If he fought, they would accuse him of fraud. If he spoke, they would sue until his family had nothing left. If he pushed too hard, the same employees he had promised to protect would be cut loose and blamed on his instability. So he disappeared from the front of the building. But he did not leave the truth behind. He kept the original plans. He kept the first contracts. He kept the key to the founder's room that had been sealed during the second renovation. He kept every letter his wife had marked with a blue pencil before her hands grew too weak to hold one. At the bottom of the trunk was one final note. Isaiah unfolded it. Do not let them turn our work into a place that forgets people. He read it once. Then he placed the brass key on top of the founding agreement, beside both signatures. The man Brent had thrown into the rain had not come from nowhere. He had come from the foundation. The next morning, the Grand Meridian's executive conference room filled with people who had never polished a railing, carried a suitcase, or learned the names of the workers who kept the place alive. A screen glowed at the front of the room, Grand Meridian Resort Strategic Transition Plan. Under the title were charts, revenue projections, asset maps, and photographs taken from angles that hid the service entrances. The ocean view appeared in every slide. The staff appeared in none of them. Brent stood beside the screen with a remote in one hand and a silver pen in the other. His suit was darker than usual. His smile was brighter. Around the glass table sat regional executives, corporate attorneys, finance officers, and two representatives from a foreign investment group. Victor Langley sat near the head of the table, fingers steepled. The property remains one of the strongest luxury assets on the coast, Brent said. Occupancy is above forecast, premium room revenue is rising, and public perception remains exceptionally clean. Clean. The word passed easily through his mouth. On the next slide, a diagram showed the resort broken into sale categories: main tower, penthouse level, beach club, spa wing, historic archive, operational records, legacy storage. One attorney tapped her pen. During transfer, non-essential records will be boxed off-site. Some physical storage may be destroyed after digitization. Brent nodded quickly. Of course. We have outdated storage areas that can be cleared before closing. How soon? Victor asked. 48 hours, Brent said. A finance officer looked up. That fast? Brent's smile held. The building is ready. We simply need to remove clutter. The attorney scrolled through her tablet. Any known disputes tied to founding documents, legacy ownership, or prior partner claims? For the first time, Brent's hand stopped moving. Only for a second. Then he clicked to the next slide. A photograph of the penthouse lounge filled the screen. White orchids, champagne, blue ocean beyond the glass. No active disputes, he said. Nothing credible. Victor's eyes shifted toward him. Nothing credible? Brent gave a small laugh. Old properties always collect stories. Former workers, local rumors, sentimental attachments to the past. None of it has legal weight. The attorney made a note. At the far end of the table, Regional Director Elaine Porter studied Brent over her glasses. I received a brief HR flag yesterday about a suspended employee. Isaiah Cole. Brent's face did not change. A minor personnel matter. Connected to VIP floor access? Attempted access, Brent corrected smoothly. He became confused about boundaries and made inappropriate comments in front of premium guests. I removed him from the schedule to protect the transition. Victor smiled faintly. Good. That single word seemed to feed Brent. He advanced another slide. This one showed projected leadership after acquisition. Beneath Property Operations Director was a blank space labeled Interim Candidate. Brent stood a little straighter. "We believe stability after closing will be essential," he said. "I am prepared to support that transition personally, at whatever level ownership requires." Everyone understood what he meant. A promotion, a larger office, a title far from mops, service corridors, and men like Isaiah Cole. Elaine tapped the table. "Then make sure nothing embarrasses us before signing." Brent nodded. "It will not." The screen changed again, showing a countdown calendar. Closing review, asset verification, archive transfer, final buyer walkthrough. The dates felt like a clock ticking. Downstairs, behind a locked maintenance door, boxes of old files sat in a room no guest had ever seen. Paper contracts, renovation drawings, photographs, storage ledgers, names that had survived because no one had bothered to destroy them yet. By the end of the week, they would be gone. Brent looked at the countdown on the screen and smiled. He believed time was on his side. Mia waited until the front desk changed shifts. The lobby had entered that afternoon lull, when guests disappeared into spa appointments, business calls, and lunches. The phones rang less. The fountain sounded louder. Behind the reception counter, the computer screen glowed pale blue against Mia's face as she signed out of the booking system and opened the archived personnel database. She should not have had access to it. Most clerks used the system only for current schedules, but during training, an older supervisor had once shown her where the legacy files lived, half joking that every hotel had ghosts if you knew which folders to open. Mia typed Isaiah Cole. Nothing appeared in active employees except the file Brent had used. Custodial services, part-time, suspended pending review. She clicked advanced search and checked include inactive legacy records. The computer hesitated. The spinning circle turned while footsteps crossed the lobby behind her. Mia forced herself not to look over her shoulder. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard, ready to close the window if Brent appeared. A record loaded. Cole, Isaiah M. Her breath caught. This was not the gray employee profile Brent had opened. This file used an older format, with a scanned photograph and a badge number that did not match the current system. The image was grainy, but the face was unmistakable. Younger, stronger, wearing a dark suit instead of a janitor's uniform. Mia leaned closer. The title line beneath his name read Founding Proprietor. For a moment, the lobby seemed to fall away. The marble, the phones, the guests, the practiced smiles, all of it went quiet behind that single phrase. Not custodian, not maintenance overflow, not a confused old man with stories about the past. Mia clicked the file. A new page opened slowly. The first section showed dates from the early 80s. Property formation, original access privileges, founder-level credentials. The old crest appeared again in the corner, 2 palm trees and a rising sun, the same crest on Isaiah's brass key. Her hand moved to the mouse wheel. Then the screen flashed red. Access denied. Mia froze. She clicked again. Access denied. Restricted by corporate legal administrator. A smaller alert opened beneath it. This attempt has been logged. Her pulse jumped hard enough that she felt it in her throat. She reached for the close button, but another window appeared. Unauthorized legacy access detected. "Mia!" The voice came from directly behind her. She stopped breathing. Brent Calloway stood less than 3 feet away, one hand resting on the back of her chair. She had not heard his shoes. His reflection hovered in the dark edge of the monitor. "What are you doing?" he asked. Mia closed the window too late. "I was checking a guest archive." Brent leaned forward. His cologne filled the space behind the desk. "That was not a guest archive." Mia said nothing. He reached past her and tapped the keyboard. The search history opened with awful speed. Isaiah Cole, legacy records, founder documentation, restricted profile. Brent's jaw tightened. The lobby continued around them, unaware. A guest near the concierge desk laughed into a phone. A bellman wheeled luggage toward the doors. The fountain whispered over stone. Brent lowered his voice. You are new here, Mia. New people sometimes mistake curiosity for initiative. I saw a title, she said carefully. No, you saw incomplete data from a corrupted system. It said founding proprietor. Brent's eyes cut to her. The silence that followed was colder than yelling. Old files are full of mistakes, he said. Names get duplicated. Titles get imported incorrectly. That is why untrained employees are not allowed to wander through legal storage. Mia swallowed. Then why is it restricted? Brent smiled without warmth. Because people who do not understand what they are reading can create problems. He bent closer, making sure no guest could hear. Delete your search history. Forget what you think you saw. And do not make me choose between your employment and your curiosity. Mia's fingers rested on the keyboard. For the first time, the front desk felt less like a place of service and more like a line she had been warned not to cross. By 3 o'clock, every department inbox received the same message. Subject line, staff conduct and guest experience notice. Brent Calloway had written it from his glass office, where the lobby looked small beneath him. The email did not mention Victor Langley pouring champagne on purpose. It did not mention the old photograph, the missing name, or Isaiah being escorted through the front doors in the rain. It used cleaner words. Earlier today, an employee assigned to custodial support engaged in conduct inconsistent with Grand Meridian safety and guest experience standards. The employee entered restricted premium areas without authorization, made inappropriate remarks in the presence of high-value guests, and refused reasonable direction from management. Mia read the message at the front desk. Employee assigned to custodial support, not Isaiah Cole, not the man with a founder file hidden behind a red warning screen, just a position, a problem, a line item. Behind her, 2 bellmen checked their phones. One frowned. The other looked toward Brent's office, then lowered his eyes. In housekeeping, the email spread from screen to screen. In the security room, Marcus Reed stared at it without moving. Then a second message arrived. All employees who witnessed the incident are required to complete the attached statement form before end of shift. This is necessary for safety documentation, policy compliance, and protection of the guest experience during transition review. Attached was a form built around Brent's version of events. Did the employee enter a restricted VIP area? Did the employee make comments that caused guest discomfort? Did the employee fail to follow management direction? There was no box for Victor spilling champagne. There was no box for Brent taking the access card. There was no box for an old man standing in the rain. Brent came downstairs carrying a tablet. His face was calm, almost pleasant. That made it worse. He stopped at the bell stand first. Gentlemen, I need your confirmations filed. One bellman nodded too quickly. Yes, sir. The younger one hesitated. I didn't see him do anything unsafe. Brent's smile thinned. You saw the environment he created. The young bellman looked at the tablet. I guess. This is not about opinion, Brent said. It is about policy. The bellman signed. At the security desk, Marcus did not reach for the tablet. Brent placed it in front of him. Mr. Reed. Marcus looked down at the form. He wasn't aggressive. That is not the question. It says he created a safety concern. He created uncertainty around guests, Brent replied. Uncertainty is a safety concern in a luxury property. Marcus's hand hovered over the screen. Brent leaned closer. Your report matters. So does your position. Marcus signed. Mia watched from reception as the signature line filled one person at a time. Fear moved through the staff more quietly than gossip. It lowered eyes. It bent shoulders. It made decent people choose rent over truth. Brent returned to the front desk. He set the tablet beside Mia's keyboard. Your statement. Mia looked at the form. Her name was already entered at the top. Witness confirmed guest discomfort. Her throat tightened. I need to read it first. Brent smiled. Read quickly. The lobby lights shone across the tablet glass. Mia's finger hovered above the signature box, and the silence around her felt like a test. The parking garage beneath the Grand Meridian smelled of rainwater, gasoline, and concrete dust. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, leaving every corner either too bright or too dark. Headlights slid across concrete pillars. Security cameras hung above the elevators like black glass eyes. Mia found Marcus Reed beside the employee elevators. He stood alone near a gray pillar, jacket zipped, radio clipped low on his belt. He was not watching the cars. He was watching the cameras. "Mr. Reed," Mia said. Marcus did not answer right away. His eyes moved past her, checking the lane behind her, then the stairwell door, then the camera above them. "You should not be down here," he said. "I could not sign that statement." His face tightened. "Then do not say that under a camera." Mia looked up. Marcus stepped into the shadow between two parked SUVs. "Stand there." The instruction made her stomach drop. Until then, fear had lived behind Brent's smile and corporate emails. Down here, under concrete and cameras, it had weight. Mia lowered her voice. "You saw what happened." Marcus looked away. "I saw more than that." A car passed, tires hissing over wet concrete. Its headlights washed across his face, showing the strain around his eyes. He waited until the engine faded. "That brass key Mr. Cole had," he said. Mia's breath caught. "You recognized it?" "Not at first, but I have seen that crest before." "Where?" Marcus nodded toward the service elevator doors. "Behind those." The service elevators were plain steel, scratched near the buttons, used by laundry carts, maintenance crews, and kitchen deliveries. Nothing about them looked secret. Marcus kept his voice low. "There is a corridor behind the upper service landing. Most staff do not know it exists. It is not on the regular floor map anymore. When I first started, one of the old engineers showed me the door because security was supposed to know every locked space." "What was inside?" "I never got inside. No one had the key." He paused. "But the door had that same crest, 2 palm trees, rising sun." Mia whispered, "Suncrest Meridian." Marcus looked at her sharply. "You found that name too." She nodded once. For a moment, neither of them spoke. A pipe ticked above them. Somewhere near the exit ramp, a valet laughed, then went quiet when the elevator chimed. Marcus stepped deeper into the shadow. "There is more." Mia's fingers tightened around her bag strap. 3 years ago, corporate sent a director here before a renovation review. Not Brent. Higher. I was posted near the service elevators because there was a private buyer walkthrough that night. I heard him talking to operations. "What did he say?" Marcus glanced at the camera again. He said, "Do not ever let that old man up to the roof level." Those exact words. Mia went still. "Isaiah?" They did not say his name, but I knew. There was only one old man on staff who still looked at the building like it owed him something. The words settled heavily between them. Marcus looked toward the steel doors. A week later, service elevator access changed. The upper landing disappeared from staff routes. The door vanished from maintenance maps. Anybody who asked was told it was sealed infrastructure. "And you never reported it?" His eyes cut to her, tired and defensive. "Report it to who? The people who sealed it?" Mia had no answer. Marcus looked down at his hands. "I have a daughter in college, a mortgage, a wife who just finished treatment. Men like Brent count on that. They do not need chains when they know what people are scared to lose." A door opened near the far end of the garage. Both of them stopped. Footsteps echoed, then faded. Marcus leaned closer. "If you are looking into this, stop using hotel computers." Mia stared at him. "Why are you telling me?" "Because yesterday I walked a good man into the rain, then signed a lie about him." His voice cracked slightly, but he swallowed it down. He reached into his jacket pocket and removed a folded maintenance printout, old and creased. He held it between them for a second before letting go. "There is still a roof service landing," he said. "Behind the old elevator bank. The door is still there." Mia took the paper. Marcus stepped back immediately. eyes lifting once more to the camera. "Hide it," he said, "and do not trust anyone who says this is about guest experience." Isaiah returned after midnight, when the Grand Meridian's front entrance still glowed, but the back of the hotel had fallen into a different world. Behind the loading dock, rainwater dripped from the metal awning into black puddles. Delivery crates were stacked beside the kitchen door. Grease bins sat behind a low wall. The resort that shined for guests on the ocean side breathed through pipes, vents, service carts, and hallways no travel editor ever photographed. Isaiah stood beneath a security light with a brown envelope tucked under one arm. In his other hand was the brass key. He wore the same dark coat he had worn on the bus, its shoulders marked by rain. His face was calm, but there was nothing tired about his eyes now. He had not come back to beg. He had not come back for a shift. He had come for something the building had kept from him too long. The staff entrance opened a crack. Marcus Reed looked out first, then over Isaiah's shoulder toward the alley. "You cannot be seen here." Isaiah lifted the envelope. "I know." Marcus swallowed. "If Brent checks the cameras, I am finished." "He checks what frightens him," Isaiah said, "not what he thinks he already controls." Marcus stared at him, then pushed the door wider. Isaiah stepped inside. The service hallway closed around him with the smell of wet concrete, laundry steam, and pipes. Somewhere above them, water moved through the walls with a hollow knocking sound. A fluorescent light flickered near the ceiling, turning Isaiah's shadow long and broken across the floor. Marcus led the way quickly. "Keep your head down by the next camera." They passed folded towels, dented lockers, and a wall clock that ticked louder than it should have. Isaiah did not look lost. He moved slowly, but his eyes went to places Marcus had never noticed. A sealed panel beside the linen chute, a hairline crack near an old stairwell sign, a faded patch where another sign had once been mounted. Marcus noticed him noticing. "You remember this place?" he whispered. Isaiah looked ahead. "Some parts remember me." The first camera turned near the ceiling with a faint mechanical hum. Marcus stopped under it, waited for the lens to drift toward the laundry doors, then motioned Isaiah forward. For 3 seconds, the hallway belonged to no one. They crossed. At the service elevator, Marcus pressed the call button. The doors opened with a tired groan. Inside, the metal walls were scratched by years of carts and crates. A small inspection certificate hung behind cloudy plastic. Isaiah stepped in and placed one hand against the side rail. Marcus pressed the button for the top service level, then hesitated. "After this, I can say I saw nothing." Isaiah nodded. "Then see nothing." The elevator rose slowly. No music played in that car. Only the dull pull of cables, the rattle of machinery, and the soft tap of Marcus's thumb against his radio. The brown envelope rested against Isaiah's chest. Inside were copies of plans, a folded letter, and one page marked in blue pencil. The elevator stopped. The doors opened onto a narrow corridor lit by a bare bulb. Dust covered the floor near the corners. The air felt untouched, as if the hotel had been holding its breath for years. At the far end stood a service door behind unused banquet chairs. On the door was the old crest, 2 palm trees, a rising sun. Isaiah walked toward it without hurry. Marcus stayed back, pale beneath the weak light. The camera above them turned slowly. The brass key was already in Isaiah's hand. Isaiah stood before the hidden door with the brass key resting between his fingers. For a moment, no one moved. The old crest on the wood was nearly invisible beneath years of dust and varnish, but the shape was still there. 2 palm trees, a rising sun. Marcus looked back toward the service elevator. "We should hurry." Isaiah did not answer. He fitted the key into the lock. At first, nothing happened. Then the metal inside shifted with a deep, tired click. Marcus stared. "My God!" Isaiah turned the handle, but the door opened only an inch before striking something behind it. He pressed his shoulder gently against the wood. Dust broke loose from the frame. Somewhere inside, old hinges groaned like a voice waking after years of silence. The door gave way. Behind it was not a storage closet. It was a wall of warm wood panels, built to look decorative from the penthouse corridor side. Isaiah reached along the edge, found a narrow seam, and pushed. The panel swung inward, revealing a room the hotel had tried to forget. Stale air moved out first, then dust, then the faint smell of cedar, paper, and old ocean salt. Marcus lifted his phone light, but Isaiah raised one hand. "No phone." Marcus lowered it immediately. Isaiah stepped inside and found the old lamp on the desk by memory. He touched the switch. For 1 second, the bulb only flickered. Then a low amber light filled the room. Everything was still there. A wooden desk faced a narrow window sealed behind the newer wall. Rolled blueprints lay in brass tubes along one side. A corkboard held yellowed sketches of the original lobby, the east garden, the service corridors, and the roof terrace before it became a private lounge for people who had never known who built it. On a long table near the wall sat a small model of the first resort, handmade from wood, cardboard, and painted glass. Suncrest Meridian. The tiny sign above the miniature entrance still carried the old crest. Marcus stepped in slowly, his mouth open. This was an office. Isaiah's eyes moved across the room. It was ours. The word ours changed the air. On the desk was a framed photograph of Isaiah and his wife, standing beside the same model. They were younger, both smiling, both looking exhausted and alive. Her hand rested on the roof of the little building as if she were blessing it. Isaiah touched the edge of the frame. "She said every room needed a window," he whispered. "Even the rooms no one was meant to see." Marcus said nothing. Isaiah opened the top drawer. Inside were pencils, old room keys, a guest registry from the first month, and a leather-bound book wrapped in cloth. He set it on the desk and untied the string. The pages were filled with names. Shareholder ledger, original partnership units, founder allocations, voting rights, Isaiah Cole, Naomi Cole, signature after signature, each one written in blue ink that had survived longer than the men who tried to erase it. Marcus leaned closer. "This is real." Isaiah turned another page. Behind the ledger was a folder marked Transfer Correspondence, letters, notices, disputed amendments, and stamped copies of documents that corporate lawyers had claimed were lost. One letter carried Naomi's handwriting in the margin. "Do not sign away the heart of this place." Isaiah's thumb stopped there. The room seemed to hold its breath. Beyond the hidden wall, the hotel hummed with luxury. Ice machines, elevator cables, distant music from the penthouse lounge. But inside that sealed office, time had not obeyed Brent Calloway, Victor Langley, or any polished executive who thought history could be boxed and destroyed. Marcus looked from the ledger to the model, then to Isaiah. "You are not just working here," he said. Isaiah closed the folder gently. "No," he replied. He looked at his wife's photograph, and for the first time, the pain on his face was stronger than his patience. "We dreamed it first." The sound came from the corridor first, not footsteps, a sharp electronic beep. Marcus turned toward the hidden door, his face losing color. The service elevator had opened again. Isaiah remained by the desk, one hand resting on the shareholder ledger. Mia stood near the wall of blueprints, the folded maintenance printout clutched against her chest. She had arrived minutes earlier through the same service landing, pale from fear but unable to stay away. Then Brent Calloway appeared in the doorway. For a second, he did not speak. His eyes moved across the room, taking in the desk, the model resort, the old ledgers, the framed photograph, the papers spread beneath amber light. The look on his face was not confusion. It was recognition sharpened by panic. Then he turned it into anger. "What the hell is this?" Marcus stepped forward automatically. "Mr. Calloway, do not." Brent pointed at him. "Do not say one word." Mia's fingers tightened around the papers. "This room was sealed. It has original property records." Brent laughed once, loud and brittle. "You broke into a restricted area of a private resort, and your defense is that you found old junk?" Isaiah looked up slowly. "It is not junk." Brent's eyes snapped to him. "You are trespassing." Isaiah closed the ledger with careful hands. "I used my key." You have no key, Brent said. You have stolen property, obsolete documents, and 2 employees stupid enough to help you commit a crime. Marcus flinched. Mia's face went white. Brent stepped into the room as if entering it gave him ownership over the past. His polished shoes left prints in the dust. I am calling the police. Then I am calling corporate legal. Then I am making sure every one of you is named in the complaint. Mia found her voice. Those records identify Mr. Cole as a founding proprietor. Brent turned on her. Those records identify nothing until an attorney says they do. Isaiah opened the brown envelope and removed a folded agreement. He placed it on the desk, smoothing it with one weathered hand. This is the original partnership document. Brent glanced at it, then smiled. That smile frightened Mia more than his shouting. You really think a yellow piece of paper can stop a sale worth hundreds of millions of dollars? Brent said. You think because your name appears in some ancient folder, you can walk in here and reclaim a luxury property? Isaiah did not raise his voice. I think the truth has remained here longer than you have. Brent's smile faded. The truth is that this resort is managed by a corporation with lawyers you cannot afford to pronounce. The truth is that you are a suspended janitor inside a restricted executive area after midnight. The truth is whatever gets filed first. The room went still. Marcus looked from Brent to Isaiah, his duty pulling one way and his shame pulling the other. Mia took one small step closer to the desk, as if her body could protect the papers. Brent noticed. Touch those documents again, he said, and I will add evidence tampering. Isaiah slipped one page back into the envelope before Brent could reach it. Brent's eyes narrowed. What was that? Isaiah held the envelope against his chest. Something that does not belong to you. Brent took out his phone and raised it. Security breach, he said into the line, his voice smooth again. Roof service level. 3 intruders, 1 terminated employee. Send police access now. Then he looked at Isaiah with cold satisfaction. Now, Brent said, we find out who owns this building. Brent kept the phone raised as if authority itself were shining from the screen. Within minutes, the hidden office filled with heavier footsteps and colder voices. Elaine Porter arrived first, the regional director from the morning meeting. Behind her came Graham Whitlock, senior counsel for the management corporation, a thin man in a navy suit with a leather document bag. He did not look shocked. He looked inconvenienced. Brent pointed at Isaiah. That is the suspended employee. Isaiah stood beside the old desk, the brown envelope held at his side. My name is Isaiah Cole. Whitlock glanced at him. I am aware. Mia stood near the wall of blueprints, pale but holding her ground. Marcus remained by the door, rigid, his radio silent on his belt. On the desk, the shareholder ledger lay open beneath the amber lamp. Elaine scanned the room. Who opened this? I did, Isaiah said. With a stolen key, Brent snapped. With my key, Isaiah replied. Whitlock lifted one hand, silencing them both. Mr. Cole, whatever personal attachment you have to this space, the property is under corporate control. You have no authorization to enter restricted areas, remove documents, or interfere with asset review. Isaiah placed one paper on the desk. This agreement names me and my wife as founding partners. Whitlock barely looked down. Former partners. The word landed like a door closing. Mia stepped forward. Former according to what? These letters show the transfer was disputed. Whitlock turned toward her slowly. And you are? Mia Alvarez. Reception. Then you are far outside your role. Brent's mouth twitched with satisfaction. Whitlock opened his leather bag and removed a thin folder. The papers inside were clean, modern, stamped, and easy to believe. Our records show Isaiah and Naomi Cole transferred all remaining ownership interests during debt restructuring decades ago. Any earlier partnership language was superseded. Mr. Cole has no current legal standing. Isaiah's face remained still. My wife never signed the final transfer. That allegation has no value without court recognition. It has value if it is true, Mia said. Elaine's voice cut through the room. Truth and proof are not the same thing. No one spoke. Outside the sealed wall, the resort continued breathing. Elevators moved, pipes knocked, music drifted from the penthouse lounge. Inside the hidden office, the people who had found the past were being told it did not matter. Whitlock pointed to the desk. "Secure the materials." Marcus did not move. Brent snapped, "Mr. Reed." Marcus looked at Isaiah, then at the ledger. His hand lifted halfway and stopped. Whitlock's tone stayed calm. "Failure to comply will be treated as participation in unauthorized access." That was enough. Marcus stepped forward, shame written across his face. He gathered the papers with careful hands. Mia reached for Naomi's marked letter, but Brent blocked her. "Do not touch anything." 2 more guards appeared with clear evidence bags. One by one, the founding agreement, ledger pages, transfer letters, and old photographs disappeared into plastic. Isaiah watched silently. Then Brent reached for the framed photograph of Isaiah and Naomi. "That stays," Isaiah said. Brent smiled. "No, it does not." He slid the frame into a bag. For the first time, Isaiah's hand tightened. Whitlock noticed. "Mr. Cole, do not make this worse." Isaiah lowered his hand. Elaine turned toward the hidden panel. "Seal this room. Change the locks. Archive access is suspended until after closing." Mia stared at her. "After closing, these records will vanish." Elaine met her eyes. "That is not your concern." Whitlock nodded to the guards. "Escort Mr. Cole off the property. Again, if he returns, call police before speaking to him." Marcus swallowed. "I can walk him out." Brent shook his head. "You are relieved of this matter." The guard stepped toward Isaiah. He did not resist. He picked up only the brown envelope before Brent could stop him, holding it flat against his coat. Whitlock's eyes narrowed. "What is in that?" Isaiah looked at him calmly. "A letter. Hand it over." "No." Brent moved forward, but Elaine stopped him. "Let him keep his letter. It will not change the law." Isaiah looked once at the empty desk, the model resort, and the place where Naomi's photograph had been. Then the guards let him out. The hidden panel closed behind them with a hollow thud. This time, the truth had been found, and still, the building chose silence. By morning, the video had already escaped the hotel. It started on a young guest's phone, recorded from beneath the front awning while rain sheeted across the marble steps. The camera shook slightly. Valets moved in the background. A woman whispered, "Is that the janitor from upstairs?" Then the frame settled on Isaiah Cole, soaked in his gray uniform, bending slowly to pick the brass key out of the rain. Brent's voice was clear. "This resort was built for people who understand its value, not for men who think mopping floors gives them a claim to it." The clip was only 28 seconds long. That was enough. At first, it appeared on a personal page with a caption written in disbelief. "Luxury hotel manager throws elderly worker into storm." By breakfast, it had been reposted by service industry groups. By noon, local accounts were sharing it with angry comments. By mid-afternoon, a regional news site had picked it up. Elderly hotel worker escorted into rain after VIP floor dispute. The headline appeared beneath a frozen image of Isaiah standing on the steps, one hand closed around something no one online could yet identify. The comments moved faster than the hotel could delete them. That man did not look threatening. Why did no one help him? Listen to the manager's voice. He wanted people to hear that. "I worked hospitality for 12 years. This is exactly how they hide cruelty behind policy. Others defended the resort. There has to be another side. Maybe he really was trespassing. You cannot just walk into restricted areas because you used to work somewhere." Then someone uploaded a second clip, taken earlier in the lobby. It showed Brent holding Isaiah's old access card between 2 fingers. It showed guests laughing softly. It showed Marcus standing nearby, uncomfortable and silent. The story grew teeth. In the staff break room, phones glowed under tables. Housekeepers watched with headphones hidden beneath their hair. Bellmen refreshed comment threads between luggage runs. Cooks read headlines beside stainless steel counters. Even employees who had signed Brent's statement looked at the video and saw what their names had helped bury. Mia watched from the front desk, her face still. Her phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. "It is everywhere." Before she could answer, every employee received a new email from corporate communications. Public statement regarding former employee incident. The language was clean, careful, and bloodless. Grand Meridian Resort is aware of a selectively edited video involving a former employee who entered restricted areas during an active luxury guest event. The individual had previously displayed concerning behavior and had been removed from scheduled duties pending review. Our team acted to preserve guest safety, employee well-being, and operational standards. Former employee. Concerning behavior. Guest safety. Mia read the words twice. They had taken a man thrown into the rain and turned him into a threat. An hour later, the same statement appeared online beneath the resort's gold logo. Comments flooded in immediately. Some people believed it. Some mocked it. Others began searching public records, old photographs, archived business pages, anything connected to the name Isaiah Cole. A local reporter posted a still from the opening night photograph. Is this the same man? The image was blurry, but the posture was familiar. Younger Isaiah in a dark suit. Naomi beside him with the ribbon scissors. Behind them, the old entrance and the crest. 2 palm trees. A rising sun. By evening, news vans idled across the street from the resort entrance. Brent stood behind the lobby glass, watching camera lights gather where guests usually waited for valet service. For the first time, the crowd outside was not admiring the hotel. It was questioning it. Isaiah did not go home after the second escort. He sat in the back pew of St. Anne's, the brick church 3 miles from the resort, with rainwater drying on the hem of his coat. The sanctuary was empty. A janitor moved near the vestibule, pushing a mop in slow, hollow strokes. Candles burned beneath a statue of Mary, their flames trembling each time the old heater clicked on. Mia found him there just before evening. She had come through a side door with her hair tucked under a hood and her phone turned off in her pocket. The video had made her afraid to be seen near him, but fear had not kept her away. Isaiah was holding the brown envelope. "They took everything else," she said softly. "Not everything." He opened the envelope and removed Naomi's last letter. The paper had been folded so many times the creases looked almost white. Isaiah read one line with his thumb resting beneath it, as if touching the words kept her voice near. "If they take your name from the door, find where I left our promise." For years he had thought she meant the trunk, the blueprints, the letters, the proof he had guarded in silence. But after Whitlock's cold certainty, after Elaine's order to seal the room, the sentence returned differently, not as memory, as instruction. Mia sat beside him. "Do you know where she meant?" Isaiah looked toward the front of the church, where a narrow hallway led to the parish office. Naomi trusted Father Daniel more than she trusted lawyers. The priest was gone now, buried in the cemetery behind the chapel. But the church remained. So did the old records room behind the sacristy, a narrow space with filing cabinets, hymnals, baptism ledgers, and boxes marked by families who had moved away. The current pastor unlocked it for Isaiah without asking many questions. Dust rose when the door opened. Mia held the flashlight while Isaiah searched the shelves. Old Christmas decorations leaned against a wall. A brass collection plate sat upside down on a cabinet. Cardboard boxes carried names written in marker. Cole, Naomi, and Isaiah. Isaiah stopped breathing for a moment. He pulled the box down with both hands and set it on a wooden table. Inside were ordinary things first. A lace handkerchief, a guest book from the first resort wedding, a dried gardenia pressed between pages of a hymnal, a photograph of Naomi standing in the unfinished east garden, one hand on her stomach, laughing at something Isaiah had said outside the frame. Then came the sealed envelope. Naomi Cole, Private Testament and Property Trust. Mia's flashlight beam shook. Isaiah opened it slowly. The first document was her will. The language was formal, but her signature was unmistakable. Beneath it was a certificate for the original land parcel on which Suncrest Meridian had been built. Not the hotel brand, not the management company. The land itself, held in trust under founding covenant. Mia whispered, "They never owned the ground." Isaiah turned the page. There it was, the clause Naomi had hidden, where no corporate lawyer had searched. Management rights could be assigned, transferred, or contracted, but ownership of the land and core resort charter remained bound to the founding trust. If any managing corporation erased founder records, discriminated against protected workers, destroyed legacy documents, or violated community access terms, its management rights could be revoked. Isaiah's hand trembled. Not from age, from recognition. Mia read the final line aloud, her voice barely above breath. "All authority returns to the surviving founding trustee." The room fell silent. Outside, church bells began to ring over the wet street. Isaiah looked down at Naomi's signature, then at the pressed gardenia beside the will. For decades they had called him former, suspended, confused. Nothing. Naomi had left one word they could not erase: surviving. Isaiah folded the document with careful hands and placed it back into the envelope. His eyes shone, but no tear fell. "She knew," Mia said. Isaiah looked at the photograph of his wife in the garden. "She promised," he replied. Then he closed the box, holding the will against his chest like a heartbeat waiting to be heard. The signing ceremony was held in the same penthouse lounge where Isaiah had once knelt to clean champagne from the marble. This time, the tables were covered in white linen. Cameras waited near the windows. Corporate board members stood with polite smiles. Victor Langley's investment team sat beside a stack of contracts bound in black folders. Brent Calloway moved through the room with a bright, controlled confidence, shaking hands as if the future had already been promised to him. Graham Whitlock placed a silver pen beside the final agreement. Elaine Porter leaned toward Victor. "Once this is signed, transition begins immediately." Victor nodded. "Good. I prefer clean acquisitions." The private elevator chimed. Every head turned. Isaiah Cole stepped into the lounge. He was not wearing gray. He wore an old dark suit, carefully pressed, with a white shirt and a narrow tie that had gone slightly out of style decades ago. His shoes were polished. His shoulders were straight. In one hand, he carried a leather folder. Beside him stood Mia. Marcus followed behind them, pale but steady. A woman in a navy legal coat walked at Isaiah's other side. Brent's smile vanished. "You are not allowed in here." Isaiah stopped at the edge of the black marble. "I know this floor." Brent turned to security. "Remove him." The woman beside Isaiah raised one document. "No one moves." Her voice was calm, but it cut through the room. "I am Evelyn Price, counsel for Isaiah Cole, surviving trustee of the Suncrest Meridian founding covenant." Graham Whitlock stood. "This is absurd." Evelyn placed a certified packet on the table. Land trust certificate, founder covenant, Naomi Cole's will, management revocation clause, all recorded this morning with the county clerk. The room shifted. Victor leaned forward. "Revocation?" Evelyn opened the folder. "Your seller does not own the ground beneath this resort. They hold management rights only. Those rights are voidable if founder records are destroyed, if protected employees are discriminated against, or if legacy documents are concealed." Mia stepped forward and placed a drive on the table. "They concealed them." Marcus added another folder, "and I signed a false statement under pressure. This is my sworn correction." Brent's face flushed. "They are lying." Evelyn clicked a remote. The screen behind the signing table lit up. First came the viral video. Isaiah in the rain. Brent's voice echoing across the lobby. Then came security footage from the service landing, the hidden room, the seized documents, Whitlock ordering guards to bag the founder records, Elaine ordering the room sealed until after closing. No one spoke. The cameras near the windows turned toward Brent. Victor closed his contract folder. "We are out." Brent snapped toward him. "Mr. Langley, wait." Victor stood. "I do not buy lawsuits disguised as resorts." One board member whispered to another. Elaine's face had gone gray. Whitlock reached for his phone, but Evelyn spoke first. "Regulators have been notified. So has the state attorney's office." Two investigators entered from the elevator lobby, badges visible but voices low. Brent looked around the room, searching for someone still beneath him. No one was. "Isaiah," he said, suddenly quieter. "This can be discussed." Isaiah looked at him with the same calm eyes Brent had mistaken for weakness. "No," Isaiah said. "It can be corrected." The cameras flashed. Brent lowered his head, and for the first time in that room, he had no script left. The next morning, Isaiah returned to the VIP floor through the same private elevator bank where Brent had once tried to make him disappear. This time, no security guard pressed a hand against his shoulder. No guest laughed behind a champagne glass. No manager stood in front of him blocking the door. The elevator opened, and the staff waiting in the penthouse lounge straightened as he stepped out. He carried only the brass key. The old suit was still on him, pressed and plain, but there was a quiet weight in the way he walked. Mia stood near the entrance with a new badge on her jacket, Guest Relations Director. Her eyes filled when Isaiah saw it, but she held her posture. Marcus stood beside her, still in uniform. Not fired, not suspended. Protected under witness policy by the investigators now reviewing every internal statement Brent had forced people to sign. Brent Calloway was gone. His office on the mezzanine had been emptied before sunrise. His nameplate had been removed from the glass door, leaving a pale rectangle where authority used to sit. The investigation into document concealment, false reporting, and discrimination had only begun, but the room already felt lighter without his footsteps crossing the marble below. Isaiah walked to the far wall. The black and white opening night photograph had been rehung at eye level, no longer half hidden behind orchids. Beneath it, a new brass plate had been mounted. Isaiah Cole and Naomi Cole, founding proprietors, Suncrest Meridian Resort, 1984. For a long moment, Isaiah did not speak. Then he touched Naomi's name with 2 fingers. "She gets her door back first," he said. Mia lowered her eyes. Marcus swallowed hard. After that, Isaiah led them to the hidden room. The wooden panel had been restored. The dust had been cleaned, but not erased. The desk remained. The model resort sat beneath glass. The shareholder ledger, Naomi's will, the first land certificate, and the old photographs had been placed in protective cases. A small sign now stood beside the entrance. Founder's Room, open to guests, staff, and community visitors. Isaiah fitted the brass key into the lock one last time. The same key Brent had mocked. The same key guests had laughed at. The same key Isaiah had picked up from rainwater on the hotel steps. It turned cleanly. The door opened. Staff members entered first. Housekeepers, bellmen, cooks, clerks, security guards. People who had once been told to stay invisible now walked through the room where the resort's heart had been hidden. Isaiah stood by the desk and looked at them. This place was never built to make anyone feel small. No one moved. He continued, softer. If the Grand Meridian is going to keep standing, it will stand on that. Outside the windows, morning light spread across the ocean. Later that day, guests saw Isaiah in the lobby, not as a janitor, not as a rumor, not as a problem to be escorted away, but as the man whose promise had outlived every lie told against him. The brass key hung beside Naomi's photograph. No longer a relic, a reminder. If this story moved you, like the video, subscribe, and watch the next story on your screen.